And that's exactly what Pat and Carrie have done for tonight's tale. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Carrie. They sign it, Dog Lovers, Pat and Carrie. Father Simon and your not-so-motley crew. My confession takes place whilst me and my wife honeymooned in the early 2000s. I selected a beautiful spot, Sea Change Villas, Rarotonga, which I looked up because I'm obviously naming the place, which is very unusual. It's Rarotonga is an island off the Cook Islands.
Okay, lovely.
Nice.
It's quite a long, it's the other side of the world. I kind of think we're safe.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where my new wife and I were to spend our honeymoon. Okay, very nice. No expense was spared, Father Simon, on this tropical idyll. We arrived at our villa and woke on the first morning to a sumptuous spread laid on by our hosts. As we sat on the deck by our freshwater pool, looking across the golden sands to the South Pacific, my new wife and I sipped champagne, coffee and ate croissant. This is not bad. This is pretty good. As we drank in the beauty, we saw strolling across the beach 2 dogs, clearly local dogs. They were in no hurry. As they approached, my mind slipped back to New Zealand, which is where we lived, and our own dog called Drum, who was our beloved hound.
Yeah.
We missed Drum very much. So, as the dogs slowly approached, we waved them over. They climbed up to our deck, obviously just to say hello, and we patted them, tickled their chest, and they loved it. We offered them a few crumbs from our table, and after a drink of water from our freshwater pool, did I mention that, they wandered slowly away. The next morning, they called on us again. Also, we gave them a tickle and a few snacks. A cinnamon bun, a pan of raisin.
Nice.
We also gave them a waffle and some cheese. That day, we read the villa notebook with all the rules and regs.
Oh, right.
It said, please do not feed the dogs.
Don't feed the dogs.
In capital letters.
Oh, dear.
Bit harsh, we thought. Next morning, the 2 dogs appeared again. With them, maybe 6 friends. No harm. We fed the dogs and their friends. Cinnamon buns, pan of raisin, waffle and cheese. I'd turn up for that.
Yeah, me
that.
too.
And a drink out the freshwater pool.
Yeah.
Next morning, we sat on the deck, and again, the 2 dogs appeared. This time, I would say roughly 20 friends. The word had obviously spread. We had every size, every breed, from huge wolfhound size to tiny chihuahuas. Or, as I always like to remember, a former colleague of mine at Radio 1 who would always say chihuahua.
Chihuahuas.
And every time I see the word chihuahua, in my head, it's a chihuahua. Anyway, we had them all. Our neighbours in the adjacent villa, I have to tell you, were Aussies. They could be heard muttering about the bloomin' Kiwis. This time we hardly had enough food to feed the dogs that had turned up, but we managed somehow. It's like the feeding of the 5,000 it was. The next morning our 2 hairy friends appeared again with a horde of accompanying dogs. I'm thinking 30 or so now. And some looked decidedly, incredibly hungry. Maybe they hadn't eaten for a week. Despite our best intentions, we did not have enough food for the pack. And getting restless, they started getting rather irate. They barked and they howled and they fought and they weed on everything that they could see.
Right, lovely.
Well, there was a freshwater pool.
Of course.
So we beat a retreat to our villa and we shut the door. The next day we went out early. On our return, we were asked if, against advice, we had been feeding the dogs. No, we said. We pointed out that it was probably the Aussies. This was a good ploy because 1, they'd left, and 2, our hosts were also Kiwis. So the management looked at us but agreed that it was bound to be the blooming Aussies. It's always the Aussies. Life lesson number 1, blame the Aussies. For the rest of our stay, we chose to go swimming at beaches around the island very early each morning, often seeing packs of dogs heading in the other direction. On our last morning, we woke to a deck full of dogs awaiting, not entirely calmly, their breakfast. Oh, the noise. Oh, the mess. We probably had every dog on the island. Needless to say, we waited behind drawn curtains for the pack to eventually disperse, which took some time. But eventually they did, muttering under their breath. No, they didn't. They were dogs. And they also left a lot of little messages for us outside. Now, here's the forgiveness, though. Father Simon and cohorts, I need forgiveness from the people who would have stayed at the Sea Change Villas next and who most certainly will not have found it quite as idyllic as we did on our first few days. The dogs will have given up, but only eventually. Well, you can see Pat and Carrie's point, because if you were going in after them every morning at breakfast, like 1,000 dogs turning up expecting to be fed. Anyway, who let the dogs out? Who? Sister Susie, voice of responsibility.
Do you know what? I should not forgive, but Pat and Carrie, I love dogs, so I probably would have fed them as well. So I am going to forgive.
Brother from another gutter.
Right, what I don't know, if you own a dog, you must know that this is going to happen. That if you feed them pano raisin or whatever it is, then they're going to come back. How do you not know that as a dog owner?
Well, it's
beyond
nice that
me.
they come back every day.
Well, I am going to forgive, and the reason for that, other than I always forgive, is it feels to me that they very much got the woof end of the stick, and as some would say, no harm, no bow wow. Yeah,
Oh dear.
No, I don't think anyone would say
that is right.
Neither of those words.
Yeah.